Hello, and welcome to Talking with Trailblazers. I am really excited for this episode. I know I say that all the time, but you know what? This one is really unique because we're going to be talking about taboo topics and how to build a thriving business around unmentionable things that the world doesn't really appreciate us talking about. Like, I don't know, menopause, women over 50, especially women over 50 owning businesses, suppositories, and vaginas. So, our guests today are Carrie Mapes and Patty Pappas of Hello Again. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank
Kendra.
you.
Thanks for having us.
I am so excited that you guys are here because you are building an incredible brand around things that the world doesn't usually appreciate us talking about, like women aging.
For sure.
As we get started, I wanted to find out a little bit about how, if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got started with Hello Again.
For sure. So Carrie and I have been friends for over 20 years. We're both stay-at-home moms. I have three daughters. Carrie has a daughter and a son, and they're all the same age, and they grew up together as friends as well. And 2 years ago, our youngest daughters went off to college, and cannabis was becoming legal. And neither of us really had a relationship with cannabis, but we thought it'd be fun to go check out some dispensaries. So we walked into the dispensaries and we started looking at all the different products and asking questions about what were they addressing, what issues were they addressing, and it became clear to us pretty quickly that a lot of the things that cannabis helps would help us at the in our time of life, so to speak, menopause. So that's sort of where the light bulb went on.
Yeah, but when we looked around, yeah, this product helped with anxiety, and that one over there was sleep, and it was a mishmash of things, but it definitely gave us, an idea. And honestly, we may have thought at the beginning that it was a marketing problem, but there was nothing there kind of marketed in a way that was appealing to us. But then when we took a deeper look, it was actually a product problem as well. We didn't want to smoke and we didn't want to vape. We didn't want it actually to be high. We wanted something that would utilize the THC and the CBD, and turns out for our product, other things, to relieve our symptoms. But we needed the thing that helped us get on with our day, that we could take in the morning and feel sharper and less anxious and more energy, et cetera, et cetera. So that led us to kind of the formulation of what we have now, which is the vaginal suppository.
How, like, I love that so much, but it's such a topic that women don't, that, it just isn't talked about a whole lot. How do you go about one? So this is just my curiosity. How do you go about telling friends and family that this is what you're doing?
Okay. So, as Patty said, we have 5 kids between us, and they were all in college when this was happening. We each have a husband, and we said at first, I think there's something here for menopause in cannabis. So that was one reaction, right? And
Well, of course, their brains went to something cool like a chocolate, mint, or a
anything.
vape or something, and we hadn't come up with the final delivery system yet.
But we pretty quickly did come up with the final delivery system, which is vaginal suppository. And then it was like, yeah.
Way down. Went from like the coolest moms to like the lamest, coming up with the lamest product.
We definitely took the cool factor out of your mom being in the weed business, basically. But in the end, honestly, I think that they are our biggest fans and supporters, our kids. I mean, they really, really get it. And I think that there's a generational difference between how we perceive our first impression of cannabis and their first impression of cannabis. And that's really allowed them and their friends to be really open-minded. And I mean, it's ridiculous. All their friends come over and we're talking about vaginas and menopause and, all vaginal dryness and et cetera, et cetera. And then our husbands as well, they were really supportive of the initial idea. And then of course, as we chipped away at the nuts and bolts of it, it became a reality. So
because having it be when we did our research, the suppository was really the best delivery system, and we can get into that in a little bit why. But we decided, we're in this to make a difference and to try to help and to relieve symptoms. And if we're going to do it, we got to go, we got to do it. And so it wasn't the easiest decision, but we thought we had to make it.
Actually, that's a really good point, because it may have been easier at the beginning to package a different type of product for menopause, and because it's an easier selling to be an edible or to be something else. But we really, I mean, we're in this for the wellness.
I love it. I love it so much. And I can't see who made the comment, but somebody commented, vagina, vagina, vagina. Let's get this party started. I love it. I love it. I think that it's fantastic. And it's one of those things where, like I said, you know, just the whole idea of, I don't know what it is about women aging that scares people so much. You know, I read something recently that hair color actually helps keep women in the workforce longer. Which I totally get. I totally get. It's super annoying, and it made me really angry, but then I went and dyed my hair, and I was like, of course.
Yeah.
But along those lines, you know, you guys are building a business in your 50s. Can you talk about that in terms of, are there unique challenges that you find, particularly around being a woman in business?
Well, first of all, I mean, the challenges, there's so many challenges. There are challenges just being a part of a new industry in California cannabis. There are challenges in being a woman. There are challenges of being over 50, and there are challenges because this is our first venture. We were not entrepreneurs before this. This is our first venture business as, you know, businesswomen, our venture as businesswomen. So we are constantly climbing up new learning curves. And I have to say, honestly, part of the joy of this product is that we are constantly climbing up new learning curves, and that's not something that I really anticipated having to do at this point in my life. But when we get up in the morning and there's a really big to-do list and some of the things on it seem daunting or tedious, it feels really good at the end of the day. It really does.
Yeah. And we've been lucky. We've had a lot of great people kind of guiding us and helping us along the way. But even just, you know, signing up for the Zoom call a year ago was a struggle. So that's come along the way.
Google is your friend.
Yes.
We've learned that Google is your friend for sure, and your cheapest employee. And also, I think maybe because of our age and because of the newness of the industry, we've really been afforded a lot of grace and respect, I think, but from a lot of people. Even I can think back 2 years ago when, you know, we didn't have the right language to articulate what we were trying to articulate in meetings. But I think maybe because we looked like people, you know, most people were 30-year-old men that we were meeting with. And I think maybe because we looked more like their mothers.
I think it's because we were talking about vaginal blindness.
I know, and then they were a little back on their heels too. They were a little back on their heels about that too. But we really were afforded a lot of respect. And what would happen is we would talk to them and they would nod their heads and whatnot. And then 3 or 4 days later, almost without fail, we'd get a call and they'd say, "Oh, I talked to my mom, and I think you're onto something.
It's real.
It's real.
She actually has everything you were talking about." It's like, okay, yeah, come to the party.
It's so funny. One of the things that really stands out when I look at your brand and really how to talk about vaginal suppositories and menopause and dryness and all of the things that affect us at some point in our lives, the tone is very lighthearted and fun. How did you land on that? Because it's a very serious topic and one that's not talked about much. So I'm curious how you landed on that tone and even the name of your company, Hello Again. Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, Hello Again came from, we just wanted people to feel like themselves again and say hello to themselves again. And we had some help in the beginning when we were branding the product from a company called Clever Creative, and they did a great job because we wanted all the messaging to be like as if Carrie and I were talking to each other or you were talking to your friends. So it was always, the dialogue was always supposed to be casual, a little bit cheeky, and, you know, just open up the dialogue for people to be able to talk about all the different symptoms in a real way.
I'll hold up the box just so people can see what we're talking about. But I think it is a reflection of our personalities. Our kids will tell you neither one of us are kind of like beat around the bush people, or, you know,
so to speak.
It can be like a mystical product that, you know, there's definitely a little sense of humor in the packaging. And honestly, we really wanted, you know, we have some things that we're really proud of about the packaging that we think make it feel more like a luxury wellness product. a department store counter product than what we were seeing in the dispensary 2 years ago. Now, certainly dispensary products have come a long way since then, but what we were aiming for was something that you'd be happy to see in your bathroom on a regular basis.
Absolutely, absolutely, and and that's what struck me about it, because when you like, it's very easy to fall into, the authoritative. Here's what you should do. These are the symptoms, like the almost doctor level, and then it's also easy to fall into. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's just almost like a mystical. Here's
Right.
what kind of brand. So it was interesting to me that to talk about something very serious, you guys flipped it on its head and approached it in a really fun way. And also, I appreciate that you use the analogy "beat around the bush" because
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, no, I mean, really, I mean, in part two, this is a symbol of what should be happening about the conversation around menopause. This is not every single woman is going to go through menopause in one way or another. It's just like puberty. But when we think about how much we read to help our kids through puberty, and how much we learn to help our kids through puberty, and how to talk to them, and how to do this, and then we don't really, educate ourselves on how to help ourselves through menopause, it's ridiculous. You said something earlier about hair color in the industry, and how, I'm thinking that probably is so that you look, that what we think of as grandmas with gray hair, and that has a different connotation than today's businesswoman probably. And that made me think of, we're the first, I love that statistic. We're the first women who are 50-ish that probably have another 50 years to live. So, today's menopause is not your grandmother's menopause, and today's 50, 60-year-old woman, 40-year-old woman is not, are you guys with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still here.
Is not the same as it was 2 generations ago. We are starting businesses. Maybe we're newly divorced and dating. We still have kids in the household. We are working 1, if not 2 jobs. There's life is more complicated and complex, and we have to interact with it in a way that's very different from, I know my grandmother, who was finished with all of that when she went through menopause.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point, because it is something that desperately needs to be talked about more. I know me personally, I feel like I'm very uneducated about it, but at the same time, it's something that it's hard to find people willing to talk about it as well. And so that's another, like, it's so refreshing to see that you guys are doing this. And if you're just joining us, I'm talking with Carrie Mapes and Patty Pappas about their company Hello Again, and what it means to build a company on a thriving business, around, traditionally kind of taboo topics. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe and join the Facebook group. And those of you who are watching live now, be sure and throw your comments and questions in, and we'll either try and answer them during the rest of the show, or come back and answer them later. One of the things that I think is really interesting as you were talking is I'm trying to picture you guys, one of the challenges that a lot of women business owners face is funding, right? Trying to go in and get funding. And another one is just trying to present yourself in the industry. And knowing that there are so many men in the industry and around the industry, how do you find their reaction when you start talking about your company and what you guys are doing?
I think, we, as Carrie mentioned before, we've had a lot of luck. I think generally, most of the men, maybe because it is a cannabis business, they're already more open-minded. But, well, the industry itself is kind of looking for things that aren't already out there. Right. So, for example, we launched our product right before COVID hit. And we were fortunate. The timing of that was fortunate. But at that point in time, nobody wanted to talk to anybody about a new vape, it was really about flower, and then anything that was going light safe on the shelves. So, and certainly, the menopause space in dispensaries is light safe until they found Hello Again. So, so that really was a huge benefit to us and our product, that we were something different, and that we were in the wellness space. I think that category grew during COVID as well. Yeah, and the willingness to maybe try the product, because I know I had some friends at the beginning of when we first got on the shelves, they're like, I don't know, I'm nervous, and I haven't tried pot or whatever it is. And then 4 months into the pandemic, they're like, what is it you're doing? Okay, do you have any samples? I'll try it now. So we always joke, it's like, you ready to try cannabis now? So I think, everybody's becoming more open-minded about cannabis, and it's been doing well because of that. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I think it's something that makes sense, right? When you start to look at everything that's happened in the past 8 months, 6 months, and the anxiety levels,
Yeah.
People are turning towards different options to try and calm the anxiety, and let alone all of our cramps and menopause and everything else that goes into it, into our day to day. But so I have a question for you. Let's talk about product testing.
Yes.
How did that work?
Yes. Well, there are a few phases of product testing. First, we got everything the way we wanted it to be. So our product contains a base of cocoa butter, vitamin E, and avocado oil, and that is all soothing and helps with vaginal dryness. Very comfortable product. There's apple cider vinegar in there to help with pH balance. So that was one thing, getting that right. Then we knew from the beginning that we wanted our product to have additional botanicals in it, not just THC and CBD. So there was kind of the formulation of that. And the reason for that is that women have been using botanicals for centuries to help with menopause. So we decided to take advantage of those botanicals to help kind of direct what was happening with the CBD and the THC. So there was layering that in and getting that right. All of that was easy. That kind of testing, was all about melt rate, leakage, appearance, how it smelled, and if you felt better without the THC and the CBD. But then once we started layering layering in the THC and the CBD part was actually the easiest part at the end, because we had everything else solid. It was just about dosage. So we had a couple of different medical consultants that we used about dosage, and we were pretty lucky. We got the ratios right, I think, pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not a low dosage product. It has THC, and because of the delivery system, we can put a little bit more THC than you would if you were going to eat it or smoke it. But we did not want to get anybody high. So that's one hurdle we've had to kind of go over. Just keep telling people this is not formulated to get you high. You're not going to go crazy. You can drive, you can go have your meeting, you can, deal with your kids, you can do everything you're going to do on your normal day. The nighttime, the sleep one has a little bit more to help you sleep through the night. But again, you shouldn't ever wake up and feel high when you use it. So that was important.
So the majority of our testing was done before THC and CBD was put in there. So that's, I think, the short answer to your question. Now, testing, now that it's a product, we have committed as a company that we are testing beyond the California Cannabis Bureau standards. The California Cannabis Bureau standards are really strict. Your organic apple or your Lipton tea bag, any kind of tea bag would not pass those standards at all. But we're taking it to the next level because we want the purest, most beneficial product we can produce. We've consulted with medical consultants. We know this product, is safe, but we want to do as much testing as possible on that. And we want to be ready when the FDA when cannabis is federally legal and the FDA gets involved, that we meet or exceed the FDA standards. So we've committed to our product being tested well beyond the standards of the California cannabis standards.
Especially because we're asking people to put this inside women to put this inside their bodies. So
And go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just listening. I also want to make sure that we get Patty in the frame. So there you go.
Like that. There we go.
Yes, typically California will test to the millionth, and our testing facility will test to the trillionth. So we're really confident that we have a safe and pure product.
Absolutely. And so you guys are based in California, which has, its own rules versus other states. One of the things that I'm so fascinated about so many aspects of what you do. One, from trying to figure out the process of product development, because I can't imagine that there's a lot of roadmaps for you guys to follow when trying to create a cannabis and CBD, THC and CBD suppository.
Right.
How hard was it to stumble through, or was it easy and you found your way pretty quickly?
So we know our limitations. We know what we're good at. We know what we can learn to do, and we know where we need professional help. So really, very early, once we knew what we wanted the product to be, we teamed up with professional formulators.
That's great. And that,
we don't have to deal with taste and all that stuff. It's actually quite a simple product to make. It was just getting the right, everything in the right formulation, but it's not a difficult product to make. And then
right, more tricky to formulate,
right.
but now to manufacture, not quite as difficult. But it's actually a really great story. We found two men, a lot for supply, and they're in their 30s. Shocker. But it's been a really nice friendship. We have a great working relationship, and they had their first babies while we were doing all this, and we started our first company in the cannabis space while we were doing all of this, and so it was kind of a poetic relationship.
I love that, and it's nice that there's that it wasn't hard, because I've heard horror stories, because there's just not as we're trying to build the path while running on it at the same time, right? So for a lot of people coming in and trying to build new companies in this, in the THC CBD space, it can be very challenging. And I think it's getting easier as more people start doing it. But it can be very challenging trying to figure out all the different pieces, because there is no, there's very few roadmaps for us.
Well, the biggest bet that we took on ourselves was we were doing the formulation while we were also designing the brand and the brand language and the packaging. That was kind of our biggest financial bet that we took on ourselves. It ended up paying off because we were able to launch last February, and then COVID hit, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So in retrospect, that was great. But that was, we just felt the pressure of time, and that was risky, but it paid off. It was also busy days. It was a busy day.
Absolutely. There's a great question here just about your process, and the question is, do you manufacture in-house or do you outsource the suppository production?
We outsource to white label manufacturing.
Okay. How do you, I know that when I go in and talk about marketing, and this is what I do in social media, it's taken in one way, but when you start to talk about, once again, and I'm going to keep going back to this because I think it's just so fascinating, that, when you start to talk about suppositories, do you run into more challenges with your marketing around the word suppository and THC and CBD? Then what limitations do you find that you run into?
Yeah, I think that a lot of women think about, monostat treatments that are messy if they haven't used a suppository before. And, that's not what ours is. Ours is much easier to use, cleaner, it's, solid. I think that some women really struggle with the suppository, but not the cannabis. Some women struggle with the cannabis, but not the suppository.
Some women struggle saying they're in menopause.
Some people in menopause, we've had feedback too that someone said, I really appreciate it that it's a suppository because I don't feel like I'm taking drugs. So, it's just our marketing and our information and our bedtender training is complex. But we're slogging through it.
But I think one of the challenges would be, because it's federally legal, it does put limitations on what you can and cannot say in some venues of marketing.
Yeah.
So that's tricky, and we have to keep an eye on that all the time.
Yeah. But the bottom line is, it makes you feel better. Try it. Buy it and try it. It makes you feel better. Try it. And alternatives there really are no other. The alternatives are prescription medications with off-label uses. So high blood pressure medication for hot flashes, or antidepressants if you're not clinically depressed, or a bottle of Chardonnay, because that helps
Right.
in the moment, but it doesn't help long term. So, there aren't a lot of really great alternatives, and we have created something that works. We both use it. It works for us in different ways. And yet, I think the dynamic nature of it is that if, Patty's major struggle is one thing that helps you with that, mine is a different thing. Mine is cognitive. It helps me with that. So, that's kind of the beauty of the cannabinoid system.
I love learning about this. What would you say so a lot of the women that are watching and a lot of the audience who's watching are in the cannabis or CBD space. What advice would you give, coming from your perspective of, once again, women over 50, empty nesters, starting your own business, focusing on menopause and things that you normally would not think about, but there's an absolute silent need for. What advice do you have for women who might be starting out or trying to scale their business?
I think there's this saying that we learned when we were going in the dispensaries, go slow till you know. Don't just smoke the whole joint, but, figure out your dosage. I think we kind of adopted that into our business practice, and just we would go, take tiny steps until we felt comfortable and we knew what we wanted to do and what we needed to do, and then take that giant step. That's one thing.
Yeah,
we definitely incorporated into our.
I think not being too reactive,
right?
And especially since the industry is changing all the time, we can call one dispensary and say, hey, what is the rule about this? And they'll say one thing, and then you find out, guess what, that wasn't actually really the rule about that.
Or really changing in January, or was this, the other day. So again, so don't go slow till you know.
Yeah.
We just had a really good comment and question pop up, and I want to make sure that we talk about it. And Michelle, thank you for your comment. She said that the sad part is these products are impossible to find outside of California or Colorado, and so she has to teach our patients to make THC suppositories themselves to help them in other states. Are there CBD options? Do you feel like the CBD options would be strong and helpful? Because then you can cross over the state lines. Are you looking at that at all?
We've talked about that, and we're CBD, and then there's also new parts of the plant that are coming that researchers are finding all the time that are not psychoactive, that are coming along. So that's going to be promising too.
Yeah. We were hoping to bring the product as it is right now into other states as well, but certainly the CBD only for sure. And you know what? The answer, I think, is that every body is different, every person is different. I think for us, for this initial product, including THC, I believe allows us to be beneficial to a wider range of bodies. But that does not mean that CBD only wouldn't work. It just might be there might be somewhere in there.
Absolutely. As we're getting ready to wrap up, I want to thank you both for being here and ask, can you please let everyone know where they can find you if they want to get a hold of you or if they have any questions?
Well, if they want to go to our website, which is lowagainproducts.com, and if they sign up for the newsletter through the website, then they'll be updated on every, you can find all the dispensaries and delivery services that we sell through in California. And if we move on to other states or whatever news is happening or specials goes through our newsletter.
Yeah, and the news, and log in today, but then log in again next week, because it's going to be the updated website is launching next week, and we'll have more information, more blogging, some information on there. So please come back twice.
Love it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I absolutely appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure talking with you guys about topics that we don't normally hear about. And so I appreciate it. And all of you guys watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us and sticking around. These are fabulous women doing amazing things in our industry, and I love being able to talk to them and talk to each of you and continue learning and sharing. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure, and we will see you guys later. Thank you.
Thanks, Kendra.
Be well.